Hey, my name is Octocause AFK and I don't know what to feel about the Coffin of Andy and Leyley. You might be a little bit confused. Is this the first YouTube video that's probably not talking about the Coffin of Andy and Leyley in a positive light? Well, yes and no. This is not gonna be a video where I'm gonna hate the game like I've seen other people do. This is not gonna be a video that's entirely praising the thing either, because I have my criticisms about it. This isn't a video defending it either from the public backlash. I will say, however, that I am gonna talk about the public backlash and my entire opinion about it, which is exactly what this video is about. But if we want to get to the meat of this game, if we want to get to the good talks about it, we're gonna have to talk about the media. What I've seen some people do is they entirely hate the game without experiencing it themselves, and they go, well, why should I try it out? It's probably just a fetish game. When in reality it's not, and I don't like when people already create assumptions about media that they haven't consumed and they use that in genuine serious discussion about it. Also, I want to say something about the game. I've probably already played gameplay clips of this game, and you might mention one thing. This game looks a lot like Helltaker. What I didn't notice when I played this game, it kind of reminded me of it. It's a puzzle game with visual novel elements. Wow. And the visual novel elements have conventionally attractive characters. However, I would say that I would rather take the Helltaker characters in a heartbeat over Ashley or like Andrew or something. Even though like Ashley I like physically hate, but you will have to understand why I physically hate her once you actually play the game. And so many people say that it's a horror game. It's not. I disagree with so many people that say this game is a horror game. It doesn't feel like it. It doesn't ever play out like a horror game. It doesn't. No, this game doesn't feel scary in any right. Yes, the topics they talk about in this game are scary. I'm someone who's shit scared of horror games, and I'm not gonna say this is the first horror game I sat through entirely, but I would never consider this horror. If you consider this horror just because of its dark theming, then I disagree with you on that basis. It's a dark comedy at best. Considering it has dark themes, some form of comedy in it, I'd consider this a dark comedy visual novel RPG. That's what this game should be advertised as. It should not be advertised as a horror RPG, because let's get into the gameplay. The gameplay is really nothing to write home about. You pretty much interact with everything you see. You spam Z and expect some dialogue to come up, and there are puzzle elements in this game which come, I would say, at around chapter 2 of this game, but it's not the focus right now. The focus of this game is very much about its characters, its story, and the world that it's in, and we're going to be discussing that right now. The Coffin of Andy and Leyley starts out with a flashback scene with its namesake characters. However, they appear to be younger and you can't make out much. And after this short intro, we dump ourselves into the real game. We play as Ashley for the entire first episode, and we never leave her perspective. And the setup for this episode is where we literally get the name of the Coffin. Andrew and Ashley are brother and sister who have been quarantined in one apartment ever since the beginning of an apparent pandemic and need each other's support to survive. They haven't been provided any food, so they live off of scraps and whatever they can find, because their wardens decided to stop giving them food after a while, making them desperate for some sort of real sustenance. And like a gift from the divine, they receive food in the form of a dead guy. In reality, it was their neighbor who screwed up a demonic ritual, and now he's apparently dead. So the first thing these guys want to do is eat his ass. Now, look, they don't want to eat his ass, but they want to eat his ass. If you're watching this, I will be 18 by then. This video is either going to be posted on my birthday, or it's going to be a day after or a day after. I'll confirm in the comment section. But I would heavily appreciate if you took this moment to wish me a happy birthday, because I'm really happy. And I'm going to be 18 years old. That's a big thing. I'm recording this video when I'm underage. And after this video is out, I'll be of age. So this video is technically a moral grey loop, a time machine. That's how the story sets itself up. It's a screwed up activity performed by screwed up people. The Steam page itself also states that Ashley, as you can see from that artwork, is a bad person, a very bad person. And Andrew, it doesn't really have the best description ever. What I did just go over is the fact that Andrew and Ashley's parents apparently don't like their own children. Very specifically Ashley, because we see in a flashback sequence that they tell her don't call back, and they never keep up with them. And on the other hand, Ashley has contracted Andrew's girlfriend, and as far as we know, given that girlfriend death threats and such, resulting in Andrew no longer having a partner. Oopsie daisy. There's also another flashback scene which gives our opening scene a little bit more context. Ashley's friend apparently has a crush on her brother, which pisses her the hell off and makes her come up with a plan to make her pay. One game of hide and seek later, Ashley tricks the girl into climbing into a dusty box, making it difficult for the girl to breathe, and Ashley emotionally manipulates Andrew into taking the final choice and locking her in forever, making sure that she can never escape. This is the one part of the game where I was frantically looking for any way to choose some other option to make sure I didn't just kill an innocent child in the most painful way I could think of. But no, this does happen, and in this cutscene you can see Andrew hesitates for a while and doesn't really want to lock her in this box, but Ashley, turning into an emotional mess, convinces him into doing so when in reality he never really wanted it. And the second he confirms this innocent girl's death, Ashley starts acting all happy and affectionate. Love bombing much? Editor's note, I'm not really that familiar with love bombing, but I know that it probably means something in this context. I'm gonna ask my love professors what that means. Essentially, this is why Andrew still sticks with Ashley. It's not just the fact that they're brother and sister, it's the fact they both were complicit in the murder of an innocent girl. This event is the biggest reason why they never split up, and it's because if Andrew leaves, he runs the risk of Ashley telling everyone the truth. Hey, Andrew locked this girl in the box. And when Andrew has sudden feelings of guilt at night, Ashley is the only person he can talk to complain or at least get his feelings out. Because if he tells anyone else, there's the chance of him going to jail. This guy really just doesn't want to get any consequences for his actions because of the fact that, the consequences are pretty scary. So he's damned if he does, and he's already damned if he doesn't. Throughout the game, you can pretty much see Ashley becoming a worse person over and over, which also influences how her brother works, and we can see this take even bigger flight in episode 2 of the game. And yes, episode 2 has the thing. Anyways, after killing one warden and luring the other warden into being an unknowing sacrifice for the demon, as mentioned in the previous ritual, Ashley gets a gift from the demon, a trinket that allows her to look into the future whenever she has a dream. This becomes more prevalent in chapter 2, but what I really want to focus on is what happens right after this. See, to get the warden to become an unknowing sacrifice, they had to lure him into thinking there was a woman who was offering some freaky time in the same room they were holding the ritual, and Andrew was the one making sure that woman didn't escape while Ashley did the deed. When she comes back, she realizes Andrew killed the woman, but the first thing that she thinks of isn't, oh my god, did my brother just kill this woman? But instead, it's, oh my god, did my brother do the freaky with this woman and then kill her? It's not the fact that Andrew killed in self-defense, apparently, it's the fact that Ashley immediately tries to think of the worst possible situation in reference to her relationship with Andrew. This is when a big argument starts up between the two, and if you have a sibling, you probably get it. A big fight over stupid shit that ultimately doesn't matter. But here, knowing these two, it's much worse. From what starts out as a misunderstanding of what happened to the neighbor lady, spins into a fight about how you're not spending enough time with me, but we literally live together. My entire life revolves around you, and almost results in Andrew choking his sister out to death, but he lets go at the end. The argument pretty much revolves around the fact that Ashley makes her brother do the bad things. She always comes up with what to do and makes Andrew do it so that none of the blame can be shifted onto her. And as quickly as it began, it fades away just the same, with the two of them going back to their ways, teasing each other like siblings usually do, but with even more of a poisonous undertone. After this point, the two of them act normal, eventually escape and end on a good note. We know as players this still isn't a good ending, considering it was also the ending of the demo, but these characters are evil people, and whatever happens is never really ending well. Now, my opinions on episode 1. Yes, the unscripted part of the video, guys. You've always wanted this. And you know what happens when you get the unscripted parts? I talk a lot. So I'm resting my back against the wall. The gameplay, as I've said, the gameplay isn't great. Nothing to write home about, and in fact, I hate that of the game the worst. At least, and I'm talking about my opinions of specifically episode 1, I hate the gameplay of the game the most. It's literally walk, press Z, hope something happens. You can say the same for Undertale, but the difference between Undertale is that at least there's something interesting happening and going on. They have a battle menu, which is one of the big parts of the game, and that battle menu, the way everything works and such, it gets rid of the fact that it's mostly press Z and walk around. But in this game, you don't have anything to get that back. Of course, this point can immediately be disproved by the fact that the game's main focus is a story, and what I personally think, and I think Boss Door mentioned this as well, Boss Door did mention that this game could have done much better as a visual novel probably, instead of just an RPG, because it doesn't make sense to have these gameplay elements when they don't really do anything.
Gameplay in Coffin usually boils down to searching the same area over and over again until you finally spot the item you need to progress the story. Combing over a room between story beats can make for a nice breather after you've read a ton of dialogue, but there are definitely times when you question why this is a video game and not something more like a visual novel. Does this game compromise itself by leaning so much into its taboo premise that it risks bordering on being an H game instead of just wanting to tell a good story?
But yeah, that's one thing. The gameplay is something that I do not like. However, the storyline and the way everything is written is incredibly good. At least, I'm saying again, episode 1. The way it's set up, the way these people interact with each other, Ashley being this teasy little mischievous woman while she unknowingly manipulates Andrew. I don't think the game ever shows off that she's unknowingly manipulating Andrew. She does it in a way that it doesn't feel like she's doing it because she doesn't know that her behavior is doing it. You can feel that evil coming out of her, and you can feel how Andrew might be, justifiably choking his sister to death because she's brought so much pain into his life, and he's become so complacent to the point that, this has to be the ending straw. But yeah, the thing is, a lot of people think that this dialogue may be, unrealistic. And that's something that I disagree with. That as someone who has been manipulated before, I know that's not a flex, but I have to do that for the reference. It's not a flex to say, well, I've been emotionally manipulated, guys. It's not the biggest flex, but essentially the character writing for Ashley is pretty good. To make her feel like an evil, disgusting, unhelpful person is good, because I kind of actually hate Ashley. The more I wrote about this game, the more I played it, the more I hate the character of Ashley more, and the more I wish she died in a ditch. Like, that's something that's successful. The game has successfully made me hate its one protagonist. Pretty good. Andrew, I'm kind of like on the middle with him, because there are moments where he does act weird on his own. He also does bad things, such as killing the warden on his own. He could have just knocked out the warden in that one scene, but he did kill him, and this will become a factor later in chapter 2 or episode 2. I honestly don't care that much. But yeah, essentially I'd give that part of the game, chapter 1, an 8 out of 10. And that's it. The storyline, this, that. But however, and you might be saying, but Octocore, someone told me on the internet that this was an incest game. And I will talk about that, but that's not gonna happen right now. There is something. In chapter 1, you do have these moments where they're being affectionate with each other, which I personally brushed off as, oh, these people are just really close. Some sibling relationships don't get like that. I am an older brother, and of course, playing this game, I did feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I just let it pass away, because I was like, you know what, this isn't gonna be a big deal. I think the point where I felt the most uncomfortable in this game was just probably how much Ashley has a possessive complex over her brother, and that made me feel really weird. And that's one good thing about this game. One good thing about this game is that it can officially make you feel like really weird shit about this, and I like it. The game can write its characters, and it can make horrible pieces of people that don't just feel like they're horrible to just be horrible, because the game is supposed to be studying these characters and how they interact with each other. That's essentially what the main point of it is to me. And so yeah, I didn't really hate it. I don't think the game is now trying to shock the player. See, the thing is, right, there's a difference between the game trying to shock the player on purpose just for the funny shock value, and then there's the game shocking the player because the game does an incredibly good job at creating a shocking situation. And I want to mention that when I say something about episode 1, I'm putting it into the latter. It does a great job at making a shocking, a creepy situation, and it deals with it in the right atmosphere, with the right emotion, and it does it. And I will stand on that hill. The argument section is done incredibly well, and that's really realistic. When someone is really angry, but they're also a manipulator. That's how they talk. That's how they. There is a scene. There's a line where she's like, "Yo, you know who actually killed that one girl? It was you. You did that." But in reality, we know that yes, even though he did put the lock, or at least the goddamn wooden thing that helped lock the box, who led him up to that? Who created the set of factors for that action to happen? Ashley did. And so that's what I will say. That game did that incredibly well. Then we have episode 2, and episode 2 is where my conflictions with the game come up. And even though a lot of people are big fans of episode 2, especially for that one thing, yeah, let's just get on with it. Okay, this part of the game starts one whole week after the first one ends, and lucky enough for us, apparently the building we lived in burned down, so technically no one knows we're alive because we're presumably dead. Right now the two live in a motel, and when Ashley sleeps she has a vision of someone coming in and killing the two of them, making them evacuate their room, and wait to see if anyone actually does try to come in and kill them. While waiting, they find a cultist who looked just like the guy they ate up in the apartment complex. That's interesting, right? And this is where we can finally play as Andrew. As I've probably mentioned before, when you play as one character in this game, it doesn't just change what sprite you have on screen. I feel like I've probably stolen that line from somewhere. It shows you the inner thoughts of who you are at that point. You're either in the brain of Ashley or Andrew, and in this episode you switch between the two at certain points in time. Anyways, we go into an alley because we're curious and find out that there's actually a little club of cultists who eat, drink, have fun, and most of all aren't very good cultists because they don't actually summon anything. I have a good feeling that these guys are gonna be a part of this game in the future because their leader has a painting. Anyways, after returning, you see someone actually enter your room in the motel, which isn't pretty good because you still have your clothes in there and you can't waste money buying new clothes. But you essentially enter the room and try and lure the killer out of your room by killing him too. And after you guys are successful by acting really weird in the forest, you decide to drive to your parents' place. Nothing else much happens between killing the killer and driving to your parents' place, but we do learn something. This wasn't just a random guy who felt some sort of murderous spirit come inside of him. It was planned. This was a hitman, with the two of you being the chosen victims. With this new set of info, our precious siblings drive to their parents' house, but on the way Ashley falls asleep, and this puts her in a weird dimensional dream state something where you actually get puzzles in this game. Yay, I've been waiting. I'm not gonna go over them. They're your standard 2D RPG Maker puzzles, but it's a good refresher after tons of dialogue and walking around and pressing Z at everything. This time you press Z at only 50% of the things. Essentially, while going through this new dream dimension state, you meet the demon again, the demon that you met during the ritual, and he insists that to get another prophetic dream you need to sacrifice another person. Essentially, this charges up the trinket, acting as if it's an active item in a Binding of Isaac game. There's also a special secret in this area. There's a gift box that you can find, and if you're a bit too lazy and you don't go for the gift box like I did, you miss a cutscene which explains why Ashley always wants to stick around with Andrew so much, and showing that Andrew was the only person in her life at that point who decided to give her some attention and treat her nicely, explaining why Ashley always wants to be with him. Apparently Ashley didn't have that many friends. All of her friends kept pushing her away, but we don't know if it's because she did something to her friends or because her friends were bad people. We know that her parents never really treated Ashley nicely, so we get this thing which I feel should have been in the game and not hidden behind a different puzzle. Of course, some people must have gone for it or something, but it helps emphasize the fact that these people are dependent on each other. Ashley was never as bad as she used to be, and she just needed a little bit of attention. Even though she was still a bad person from the beginning, she needed a little bit of human attention, and maybe it could have helped. We don't know. Then you wake up and Andrew's already driven to the parent place, and our job now is to steal their money and run. To your surprise, it seems that the parents are doing well. A good neighborhood and a farm in the backyard. Farm with quotes, by the way. I haven't seen anyone grow plants in their backyard, mostly because I live in an area that doesn't have a backyard. I live in an apartment complex. Oh, Coffin of Andy and Leyley reference. Ooh, am I also gonna start eating people? You rummage around for a way to break in, and you end up inside the bathroom that seems to be going through through some renovation. After letting your brother in, you explore the place and find out your parents are living a large, or at least living well compared to what your state was for God knows how much time. You find out later that your parents have very interesting hobbies, and they have your death certificates for some reason. Apparently, the two of you have been dead for over 3 months now, which raises some questions as to what your parents have been up to. Also, there's a bed in the basement, which some people have theorized means the mom probably has people over, probably in a non-sexual or a sexual context. But I personally don't agree with it that much because I don't see enough evidence and I don't really vibe with it. You know, theories are entirely on the basis of how much you vibe with it, not on the basis of if it's true or not. But it does sound plausible because after checking everything out, oops, mom's home. And guys, I need to be honest with y'all.
Such a bad bitch.
But that's me. I'll be honest with you guys, the mom is hotter than Ashley. Ashley is actually like the worst character in this game, maybe because of the fact that I don't actually like Ashley as a person. But mom, yow! Now the mom isn't the best person either, I can fix her.
She is such a bad bitch.
But our mom is pretty surprised as to how we got ourselves in, but we brush it off by saying the door was unlocked. The most unsuspicious way of explaining ever. The rest of the game is Andrew and Ashley pretending to be normal and acting like nothing's happening around their parents, even though all of them know this was never supposed to happen. Ashley wants to show off how angry she is, but in this case, Andrew actually takes the reins here and makes sure she acts in line with what he wants to show off to the parents, that everything's normal even though there's a hint of animosity in their conversations. The father, there's not much we can say about him because he doesn't even get a character portrait and doesn't even have that many lines. He pretty much just exists to be a nobody, a guy who exists just to exist and doesn't do anything and is probably not even aware of what's going on in his wife's life. It seems that he just agrees with her half the time and just lets stuff happen. He's also probably complicit. Maybe it's supposed to be some sort of mirroring thing for Andrew. I don't know. That whole segment was unscripted. I'm gonna put the warning there because I don't know. It's just probably something. But it's theorized that the guy sticks around with his wife just for the sex. There's also another little scene where they argue for a bit and Andrew explains how he wants to throw away Andy and he wants to just be Andrew. This is obviously referring to how he wants to throw away that part of himself that allowed for the murder to happen, that was complacent with Ashley's behavior and her bad deeds. Of course, she doesn't like this either, but Andrew makes it really clear that Andy is definitely not coming back anytime soon. Ashley tries to explain that she needs to kill her parents, otherwise, oh, the trinket, active item charge, oh. The mom really wants them to leave though, but we agree to at least just sleep at her place for one night before we leave, and then we get our first Andrew dream puzzle sequence. The whole thing is essentially symbolism of what he's been hiding in his head, as broken as he is, and how his sister has ruined parts of his life. In this part though, we get a flashback scene about him and his ex-girlfriend, even though they aren't exes yet in this particular scene. He fumbled so bad. She's so hot, bro. How come Andrew has so many hot women in his life and he picks his sister? We get to hear some phone calls which show what Ashley said to scare off his girlfriend to make sure Andrew was always hers. And in this flashback scene, we see how Julia, the ex, wanted Ashley to stop being so attached to Andrew. She phrases it to make it look like it would be better for Ashley to be independent and it would help their relationship too, which if I was in Andrew's place, yeah, that woman stays too close to me. Also, for some reason, Andrew wants Julia to tie up her hair, which yes, we'll get to later. We also find out that he doesn't even feel that bad for the people he killed. He provides reasons, but the sequence decontextualizes him. He may be a broken character and he might have been destroyed by his sister's manipulation, but we can also see that he's a bad person on the inside too, and it's not just Ashley, and he isn't a saint. Obviously, I would much rather consider Andrew to be a saint in comparison to Ashley, but he too has problems in his head similar to Ashley's. We now move to another flashback scene, a continuation of the incident that changed the two of them forever, and they come back the next day and find out that, oh, the girl's dead, who knew, dumbass? They then decide to make an impromptu grave for her, and throughout the whole thing, Ashley pretty much doesn't care, but Andrew is very scared for his own safety. He feels guilt, and from this point onwards, he becomes who he is now, pretending on the outside when his real state is one of a very broken mess. After this sequence, we are woken up by Ashley whispering words into our ear to probably try to influence our opinions or what we are thinking of, which is kind of funny in the way they present it, but it is pretty bad. It shows how she'll do anything to change her brother's mind, even subliminally message shit into his ears. The mom suddenly appears though, and it seems that she wants to explain everything to Andrew, with a tinge of probably wanting to change what she's done. But that's when Ashley pulls a gun out and pretty much starts the process of taking back control, which everyone knows isn't gonna go well. I don't really want to focus on this for a while, but I'll go over it quickly. Essentially, Ashley and Andrew prepare their parents for the next sacrifice, and then they split off so that Andrew can withdraw all of his parents' money from the bank while Ashley sets up the sacrifice. After that's done, Ashley takes a decision which can actually choose how this game ends, and yes, the ending that probably brought you to this game are influenced by this decision. Either Ashley goes to get the money from the bank, or Andrew does. If Ashley stays and Andrew goes, you just finish up the ritual and that's it. You make parent soup and decide to get rid of the bones. However, they don't immediately do all of this. They are not savages, of course. They decide to sleep first. While Ashley expects a prophetic dream, it's another sequence where a version of her brother comes to kill her, and how this ends on the basis of if you shot the killer with all of your bullets or only used one. If you used one, Ashley shoots back in self-defense, but if it's all of them, the dream just ends and you wake up with shock. Ashley wonders if Andrew would really kill her or not, but this just leads to a neutral ending. However, if you decide to let Andrew stay and let Ashley get the money, you get another decision which can make the ending vary by a big amount. Now, I'm gonna say this right now, the rest of this is by memory. I didn't actually finish this part of the script. Oops, but I think I got this ending myself. But I'll try and explain the rest. Essentially, while you're waiting for Ashley to go and get the money, your parents try and influence you into trying to stick with them and say, hey, please stay, don't actually do anything with us. Come on, I'm gonna give you an offer. You tell Ashley to go the hell away and we'll take care of you and we'll make sure everything's fine. You can accept or you can decline, and this is a big choice. If you accept, and let's remind ourselves we are playing as Andrew here, this means that Andrew wants to get away from his sister's clutches. He doesn't want to be manipulated by her anymore, and he doesn't want to always be complacent for her behavior. He wants to cut Ashley out from his life, and his first step for doing so will have to be staying with his parents. Of course, regardless of what you pick, they get sacrificed anyways. The parent soup is still made and you still get rid of the bones. The only difference being you still get that dream that I mentioned in the neutral ending, but Andrew shows more signs of wanting to cut off his sister from his life and wanting to become his own person, which Ashley obviously doesn't like. Oops, my little malleable piece of clay is suddenly breaking away. Oh no, what do I do? But then, what if you choose to decline? What if you tell your parents straight up, I don't want you guys, I want Ashley? And this is the ending that I need to rewatch. Your mom essentially implies, oh, you crack her. So this does come as a bit of a shock. Andrew does act sort of differently after this. He does sort of act a little bit more affectionate towards his sister, instead of acting like a broken mess or someone who's really on his edge. And during this part, he says, hey, you know what? How about we try and share the trinket this time? When you're going to sleep, instead of you just holding it, I'll hold it. And she's like, oh, well, you don't do that. And he's like, well, why can't we share it? Well, don't cut the trinket. Okay, well, I'm not cutting the trinket. How about we just share it? We'll hold it in both of our hands, which, you know, the implication is already there. Essentially, this entire puzzle is supposed to be symbolic of what Ashley feels about her relationship with her brother, or at least their life together. As we can see, it's represented through the plushies, and we get to a very important puzzle. This puzzle allows you to get the thing. So if you take the right path instead, you just get a little small puzzle of collecting a bunch of spirits, and then when you go and get rid of the skulls, something interesting happens. Andrew has a dot on his arm. He calls it a mole, but later it turns into an eye, a similar eye that the demon had. If you solve the puzzle the wrong way, which the game allows you to do, and the game even says that this seems to be the insane, wrong, stupid path to take. If you take the wrong one, you get another puzzle, which again is supposed to be symbolic of Ashley's feelings towards Andrew, somehow looking at him as both a friend, a caretaker, and even a lover. And then we get, ladies and gentlemen, the thing you've been waiting for, which I'm not going to play a single second of because I hate all of you guys. And after this very amazing sequence, we get this conversation where Andrew doesn't necessarily look like he hates the thing. It looks like he's been caught red-handed thinking about this, because very obviously it seems like the both of them experience this vision, and it doesn't seem like he's like, oh no, I would never do that. He seems more so defensive, like, oh well, actually we just got a different vision actually, and that's what it means, and that's never going to happen. You know, when someone acts like that, I don't know the English word for it, because I don't actually know the word for it, but you know, it's when someone definitely did that and they're just trying their best to lie out of their way of doing that. And it was, you know, I didn't feel comfortable looking at it. But I will say one thing. After that whole thing, you get a choice. Either you say, never, we're never gonna be like that, Andrew, don't worry. Or, well, never say never, we're definitely gonna be like that, Andrew, because we're playing at Ashley as Ashley in this moment. And if you say never, there's more teasing and stuff, you know, and Ashley saying, oh, well, I kinda expected we would do that at some point. Which, okay, sure, I guess. And Andrew's like, no, how dare you say that damn thing? And the game even says this, right? And I think it's supposed to be talking about Andrew, and this could be affected for the fan base and even me as well. You desecrated your parents' corpses, but getting laid is what you're thinking about, which is, of course, like, a response, I guess. But if you do say never, Ashley thinks to herself, thinking, well, I really wasn't into it the whole time, but if Andrew really wanted it, I would do it just to keep him around. Which shows that, you know, Ashley is a bad person. That she would even do something that she wasn't really into just to make sure that Andrew stays with her, to get him grounded and like tied and chained to him. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's the entirety, that's everything about the Coffin of Andy and Leyley. I'm done talking about this thing. Now I have to talk about what I feel about it. So, my entire opinion of chapter 2 is much more different. And this is where I will say the confliction starts to rise up. One thing I will say is that this chapter doesn't necessarily feel as good as chapter 1, but I do feel that in the non-incest endings, like in the endings where Andrew starts to, you know, have some sort of rebellion against his sister, I kind of like that more. Obviously, you could say that's just me trying to get away from the incest, but I kind of like those more because I feel that Andrew is somewhat starting to get away from her. It is better for Andrew in the long term to get away from his sister and to try and change and become a better person. The game tries to show off that it puts both of the characters in a miserable state. Andrew's more angrier now. Ashley doesn't like this because her brother isn't treating her the same way and stuff. They'll get out of the cycle of being worse people, and they'll get out of that damn gorge they've dug for themselves. Not even a coffin, a gorge. It's that deep how bad they are. At least the endings where Andrew straight up tells his parents, no, I'm not going with you guys, I'm choosing Ashley. It seems that here he wants to stay complacent, and instead of trying to not be complacent, he decides that he wants to become complacent again, and is completely fine with what Ashley does, as long as it kind of helps him. And for the incest endings, where, you know, where you get those things, because if you say never or never say never, it doesn't make a difference as far as I know, maybe till in chapter 3, but the both of them want to be with each other, obviously, and instead that's the exact opposite of what the other endings are. But my opinions on chapter 2, I don't know. I would honestly, if you just told me to give a number right out of my head, I'd give it a 6. I, for some reason, did not like this chapter as much, and it is not just because of the endings. Of course, I've gone over this throughout the game, but even in chapter 1, there's some, you know, hints that are played off as jokes for incestual feelings, romantically and sexually, and they're normally played around as jokes. Even during the one cutscene where you're discussing how you need to kill your mom, Andrew's hand is in a very interesting place. One thing about the character writing is the character writing makes sense, and Andrew seems a lot like he's kind of flipping around. He does, a lot of people say that he's like showing signs of him showing off like who he really is. Like there's this one like really random remark that he gives when trying to break into the house. He's like, really, do I need to ask to touch your ass? And when I played this, I was like, huh, why did he just say that? Like, out of nowhere. He just says it out of nowhere, and it's never really mentioned again. Of course, there is that one scene in the motel where Ashley is standing in the way of the TV. He's like, "Get out of the screen, you fat cow." And she's like, "You called me what?" "No, I'm not a fat cow. It's my amazing boobies." But that conversational sequence is never played as them being sexually attracted to each other. It's mostly played as how, you know, how siblings like make fun of each other. And I'm guessing it is very much just siblings making fun of each other, but they use more colorful language than siblings normally do, which is interesting choice to say the least. The mom is a big factor because we can pretty much just get rid of the dad entirely, because it seems that the mom did most of the parenting. The mom was the biggest thing in this whole game, in the whole storyline of taking care of her kids. We see how Andrew was the actual caretaker, even in that puzzle sequence, right? That leads to the incest ending, that leads to them getting closer to each other. It shows how, because of how she was brought up, because of how her parents, like, you know, never treated her nicely and stuff, they've reached a point. Ashley has reached a point where she only looks at Andrew as the caretaker, the friend, as even the lover, because of the fact that they've been living with each other for so long. And Andrew is the only person who's put a little bit of effort into dating her nicely, and that's something. There's the one thing that I don't like, and the reason I'm conflicted, right, is that ending. Even though I've now done the whole thing, it still felt like it was shoehorned in. The incest. One thing I will say is that it does make sense for the characters to do that. Like, the game did a jump to that. Like, even the whole conversational thing afterwards, like, I expected we would do that at some point. It still doesn't feel like they would. I have 500 subscribers, okay guys, don't kill me for this. I'm not an English teacher or anything. I'm just a guy who wanted to talk about this game, and that's where I'm conflicted. The confliction also arises from the fact that this game has a very bad public reputation right now. Everyone thinks the game is incest fetish. I would not say that for chapter 1, because chapter 1 is something that I really think is good, and chapter 2 has potential. Like, I can see, like, this whole game entirely. The reason I'm talking about it is because I think the storyline has potential. The ending I got, where Andrew is more aggressive towards his sister and starting to, like, kind of hate her and wants to cut her out of her life, that's the ending I got, and I want to see that plotline grow further. But also I am curious as to, like, what do they make in the plotline for if they become, you know, closer to each other, if they start liking each other. And that's what I'm also interested in, but I really don't want to be interested in it. Do you get what I mean? I'm interested in it in a sort of morbid curiosity. Essentially, I think this game has potential. I want to see it grow, and I want to see it do something. I want to see it do something with its storyline, and I want to see it grow and get somewhere. But I have conflicting feelings about that. When I look at how chapter 2 was written, I don't necessarily think it's as good as chapter 1 was, because it felt like they were mostly trying to not capture moments of them being a dysfunctional brother-sister relationship. Even though the family factor was added in, I never got that tinge of, maybe this is like the most realistic brother-sister relationship that there could be. Of course, due to the fact that they are so much more aggressive and they deal with taboo and dark topics that I've not experienced in my life. I don't know, it just didn't click with me as hard, and I do feel that there is a little bit of a loss in quality. However, there are multiple endings, which is interesting. Dad didn't have any characterization, but I fully understand why he doesn't have characterization. It's because he purposefully doesn't add anything to the storyline, so he doesn't have a character portrait. He appears once during that one scene. The mom also being a flawed character, and you understand that she was probably in a bad place. It is theorized that she was probably, I think, 17 or something when she had Andrew and Ashley, which of course, one, is a very bad thing, which may be one of the factors as to why Andrew and Ashley are the way they are now. They essentially had to take care of themselves. I felt something interesting, and I felt that it was good that from chapter 1. And chapter 1 has really been carrying my feelings of the game, so on further. The feelings I have for chapter 1 are pulling me into chapter 3. It's episodes. My god, why do you keep making that mistake? Episode 2 is kind of a mixed bag for me. I do kind of like it because it continues with the storyline. It shows that they are that depraved they would even kill their own parents. But I still feel mixed about it because it doesn't have that oomph, or doesn't have that pulling force needed that chapter 1 easily gave to me. It felt like there was a different direction with this chapter entirely, and maybe because there were multiple plot threads in this thing that we didn't finish. Like, you know, like, of course the parents plot thread is finished, but we still want to learn more about them. The parents' plot thread is essentially finished because they are dead, but I still feel like there can be more moments from their life that can be interspersed to explain them. Maybe we'll get them in chapter 3. But the whole cultist thing as well, the cultist thing actually was pulling me in further, because that's a overarching thing. Even the demon saying bring Andrew along next time you do a ritual is something that's interesting. I want to see that in chapter 3. The storyline wants to show more of the fact that Ashley is very dependent on Andrew, and it shows it off by doing that thing. I do disagree with the inclusion of the incest in the game because it feels very wrong. I'm not trying to say something like, oh boo-hoo, I am offended by this, because I don't want to come off as that type of guy. I want to say that when I played the game myself, it does not feel like that would happen. It makes sense for the characters to do that. It makes sense for the characters to go that far because they would do that, right? They are that deep and that intertwined and interconnected with themselves that they would go that far. But it still doesn't feel like they have reached that point of depravity to actively make that decision. Of course, the game is telling us that information by not making them do it, but it's a prophetic dream that it could happen, guys. And a lot of people say that the incest shown during that very scene is shown as a bad thing. I can agree that the incest shown throughout the game, the certain small hints for it, they are played off as jokes mostly, and you do know that it's a bad thing because we are looking at it from a third party perspective. The game never tells us straight outright that this is bad. We know that it's bad, like, the manipulation, this and that, because we are human beings and we know what that means. We know manipulation's a bad thing, so we react negatively when we see it. The same way most people outside of the fan base probably hated seeing that scene. I'm not even part of the fan base, but I think that scene also, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like you cooked that scene enough. Where, like, that scene was in the cooker for a while and you took it out halfway. This scene is shown on purpose to make the players uncomfortable. But one thing that I don't like about that scene is the scene seems like it's very much written to be comedic. And you might disagree with me, that's perfectly fine. I want this video to be with people I disagree with, but I don't want there to be a big fight over this, so I'm choosing my words well. I don't think that scene was supposed to be written. That scene doesn't feel like it was written to be concerning or creepy or to make you feel disgusted. It feels a lot like it's comedy. Like, whatever choices you picked, having a very embarrassed Andrew and a teasy Ashley doesn't help. It doesn't help make me think that this game is trying to talk about the subject matter seriously. It made me think very much that the game's adding this in for laughs, or like a hee ha ha, look at this. And the sad thing is, with the amount of discourse that exists for this game, a lot of people have seen that one scene and thrown away the whole game for it. I have not thrown away the whole game. I still think that there is something that exists under all these layers and that can shine. I think Boss Door mentioned this as well, with the amount of weird character interactions that are between the brother and sister that are very incest, romantic type. The game kind of might be letting go of its main creative focus, its main intent. The intent being to show off how an interconnected, toxic relationship can make both people worse, and it feels like it's trying its best to turn into an H game. If you don't know what H game means, H game is like hentai, anime porn. Okay, I can stick to the route I played because I have that save file. I can just play that myself and ignore that like it happened. So yeah, another reason why I'm conflicted is because of the developer and the fan base. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I will be complaining about this. The fan base and the developer for the Coffin of Andy and Leyley help make me feel bad about liking this game, because the developer found out that people were outraged about the incest cutscene in this game, and instead of trying their best to make some good publication post or trying their best to explain to these guys, hey listen, I'm not really into this, I'm trying to show something off, the developer decided to draw the two of the siblings and say deal with it or something regarding that. I don't have the image pulled up right now, but oh my god, how much of a stupid decision is that? Some people might say, oh, that's a pretty good thing, give everyone else copium, and the developer isn't helping this game try and reach an audience of people who are open to it. I'm still open to this game. and I feel a lot of people online have already shut their doors about it because the dev is a weird person. You know, they see a normal relationship, they go boo, you know. Now, because of the fact that the developer now seems to very much be into incest, it seems that it's gonna be even more obvious that the game is going to go towards that direction regardless of what ending you get, and that is pretty disappointing because I don't want it to just be that specific thing. Please study the characters more and just not like this seems like it's gonna be a bit too much. If you disagree with this video, perfectly fine, but just know the amount of effort I put into this. I've been rushing to get this thing out. And also, the fan base, like, okay, I'm gonna say this right now. If you think I'm part of the fan base for this, I am not. I do not like the fans of the Coffin of Andy and Leyley, and here's why. Most of the fan base are a bunch of horny gooners. A lot of the discussion I've seen from this game, from the fan base, like the fandom, you know, when I say Danganronpa fandom, you don't mean a person who played the Danganronpa games and like them. It's the person who played the Danganronpa games and is just incredibly insane about it. I do not see this fan base really appreciating this game for its character writing and how good it depicted the brother and sister relationship and how bad it went and how much it's destroyed each other and how it's destroying their world around them. It's all just I'm horny for the sister, and it's so disappointing. Like, come on, guys. The sister isn't even the ex was hotter. The ex was hotter than the mom was. I don't like the fan base, and it's just everyone's like, you should love these two. These people are so awesome and so perfect. Like, oh my god, shut up. But yeah, the fan base and the developer are not helping this game's public reputation. In fact, it's making it worse. And I feel by the time this video gets out, the public reputation is like dead. It's down. The thing's burning. Don't ever bring this game back up again. You're gonna get quote retweeted on Twitter. Like, one of my fears is that someone looks at this, that someone looks at me talking about my opinions about this game and why I feel bad about liking it, and they'll take the screenshot of the thumbnail, they'll put it on Twitter and be like, look at this guy talking about the game, he's so stupid. It'll get like 1,000 likes and everyone in my comment section will be like, you're stupid, and I don't want that to happen. I want actual proper discussion about this game. I want to talk to someone about this. I feel like I'm having an emotional breakdown. I'm conflicted about if I should support this game considering how bad the public reputation is, and do I even like it anymore knowing that the dev might very much just rewrite chapter 3 just to piss everyone off. That's one thing. Anyways, the game, long story short, chapter 2 of the game is not as good. Chapter 1 of the game is, I think, the best part of the game. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. I tried my best to rush this video out, so it's not as good as it can be. But yeah, anyways, in the comment section, please talk about your stuff. Please don't fight with me. I'm just a guy making videos. If I get the chance to do it, I might make one on chapter 3. Anyway, see ya.